faithfully sharing insights, exploring great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, I'll interpret the book Cavalry Army, a short story collection by Soviet writer Isaac Babel. When it comes to Soviet novels, we know How Steel Was Tempered and Quiet Flows the Dawn. These focus on war, presenting grand, epic eras, carrying on the style of Tolstoy's War and Peace. But the cavalry army we're discussing today is an anomaly of that era. Similarly, about war, it's not a long, epic novel, but a short story collection. The whole book has 36 pieces, each around 3,000 words. Yet, with super concise and realistic language, it deeply focuses on war moments before and after, and the humanity inside and outside battlefields. Perspective. Critics say what many need a whole book to show, Babel does in just a few pages. Other writers need dozens of characters to paint a full era picture. But Babel uses just 2 or 3 characters and short descriptions to capture an era's essence. The author of Cavalry Army, Babel, was a Soviet Jewish writer. After the 1917 October Revolution, the first cavalry army was sent to crush White Army rebellions, and by 1923, it went to the Western Front to fight Poles. Babel, as a war reporter, followed the whole First Cavalry Army campaign. During his deep war experience, Babel kept a diary, later published short stories, and compiled them into Cavalry Army in 1926. Babel thought this war was romantic, soldiers fighting for an unprecedented future in human history. But this seemingly romantic war was paved with blood. In war, soldiers are brave yet rude, fearless but ruthless. War unleashes their inner malice and makes them endure unimaginable pain. The sudden rise of Cavalry Army made Babel famous. He was seen as Soviet literature's brightest star, and his work became its most unique voice. But his negative views on the Soviet-Polish War in the novel angered Soviet authorities. Finally, Babel was secretly arrested in 1939. In the following year, he was executed, dying at just 46 years old. Although he died young, Babel has never been forgotten. Hemingway said he repeatedly read Cavalry Army, studying it and marveling at Babel's writing technique. In 1986, the Italian magazine L'Europeo ranked Babel as the top novelist in the world's top 100. In 2001, the complete works of Babel, edited by his daughter, were published in the US, causing a sensation across the Western world. In the 36 short stories of Cavalry Army, the protagonist Leotov, who appears throughout, can be seen as Babel's own embodiment. In fact, the name Leotov was Babel's pseudonym when he worked as a journalist. Leotov's experiences closely mirror Babel's. He was also a Soviet Jew who graduated from Petersburg University with a law doctorate, then joined the First Cavalry Army, living in close quarters with Cossack soldiers day and night. What are the Cossacks? The Cossacks are a nomadic people mainly living in river and grassland areas of Ukraine and southern Russia. Historically, they've been known for their bravery in battle and superb horsemanship. In the 17th century, when the Russian Empire expanded eastward, the Cossacks joined the Russian army, conquering territories and achieving great military feats. During the Tsarist era, the Cossacks always served the Tsar. After the October Revolution, most Cossacks joined the White Army, opposing the Soviet regime, while a small number fought with the Red Army. For example, this First Cavalry Army was mostly made up of Cossack soldiers. The commander of this cavalry army, Budyonny, was a famous Soviet Red Army general, and one story in the book positively depicts his leadership. During a battle, the commander of the 2nd Brigade was killed, and Budyonny immediately appointed a regimental commander to take over. Budyonny, wearing red riding breeches with silver trim, stood by a tree and told the new brigade commander, "Those scoundrels are squeezing us. We either win or die out. No third way. Understand? If you desert, I'll shoot you. He said this while smiling the whole time. After saying that, he leaned against the tree, watching the brigade commander mount up and charge into battle, rallying the troops to launch a counterattack. Then, Budione himself mounted up and led his men to the front lines. This scene deeply impressed the protagonist Lutov with Budione's general's demeanor. And in the book, several other officers also won Lutov's admiration. They all wore brightly colored riding breeches with burly, athletic builds and medals pinned to their chests. And that newly appointed brigade commander also achieved military feats, leading his troops to wipe out the Polish army. And, however, after winning, the army didn't look majestic or triumphant. They walked lazily on a dusty road, and the lead cavalry didn't sing military songs but hummed vulgar tunes. As the stories unfold one by one, the image of the Cossacks becomes richer. They're undeniably brave and fierce in killing enemies, never holding back. But on the other hand, they're rude, barbaric, disobey military rules, and resort to violence at the drop of a hat. For example, the book describes a cavalry company commander, Tronov. His unit had just ended a battle and captured 10 Poles at a train station. By military orders, prisoners were to be escorted to superiors, not killed arbitrarily. But Tronov, injured in the head during the fight, was in a foul mood and just wanted to kill to vent. He ended up killing 2 prisoners one after another, first with a knife, then a gun, one of whom was an old man. After finishing, Tronov issued a murderous command. Lutov was ordered not to report this to superiors. These Cossack soldiers from nomadic tribes aren't just cruel to enemies, but ruthless to traitors, because they firmly believe in loyalty to the cause they serve. There's a famous piece in the book titled Salt, where Cossack soldiers take a train to the next battlefield. Passing through a station, a woman boarded, carrying a bundle, saying she wanted a ride to find her husband. So the soldiers let her in. But the child in her arms didn't cry or fuss all night, let alone ask for milk. The next day, a Cossack soldier snatched the bundle in public, opened it, and saw it wasn't a baby, but a bag of salt. According to the law at that time, trafficking private salt during war was a counter-revolutionary act. The soldiers interrogated the woman, and she coldly explained that if it weren't for not being able to survive, she wouldn't have taken this risk. She said, "Please forgive me. It's not me who's deceitful, but the disaster that made me do it." However, the soldiers didn't show any compassion. They told her, "We're all fighting bloody battles on the front lines. And you? Sneaking around in the rear causing sabotage. You're more counter-revolutionary than the White Army." Then they threw the woman off the train. Seeing her get up and keep walking, they shot and killed her. The Cossack soldier who fired said killing this woman was washing a disgrace off the laborer's land and the Republic's face. This dramatic twist was so thrilling, yet Babel wrote it with extreme economy of words. This understated writing style, this precision and sharpness of language was especially praised by famous writer Updike. She said Babel's fiction is like lightning, like an unblinking eyewitness. In the book, a Cossack family even turned against each other after joining opposing forces. In this family, the father served with the White Army, while his 3 sons fought for the Red Army. The father believed his sons and wife had betrayed him. Later, his unit captured a Red Army detachment. The father recognized his eldest son among them. Cursing, "You're your mother's bastard spawn," he sliced him apart knife stroke by knife stroke. But later, the second son captured the father, avenged his brother, and killed the father too. Extreme coldness toward life, so cold they could shoot or stab women, elders, kin, even themselves without hesitation. Like that cavalry company commander mentioned earlier, After killing prisoners, seeing 4 American planes, he fired at them from the ground in bloodlust, only to be easily eliminated. Historically, Cossack life was filled with poverty, humiliation, hatred, and despair. To some extent, these extreme life experiences forged their extreme callousness and cruelty. The experience of Cossack soldier Pavlichenko helps us understand this better. As a child, Pavlichenko worked as a shepherd on a nobleman's estate, tending pigs and cattle, and later he married, but the depraved nobleman quickly seized his wife. Pavlichenko went to confront him, but the nobleman accused him of breaking cattle tools, shoved him down, and viciously kicked and slapped him. After this, Pavlichenko left the estate in fury. 5 years later, the October Revolution erupted. Soviet power was established, and Pavlichenko joined the Red Army to help purge the oppressive noble landlords of the past. He finally returned home, swaggering into his childhood estate. The former master was now blind, and his wife had gone mad from the family's downfall. The master first tried to bribe Pavlichenko with gold and treasures to save his life, but after being coldly refused, he cursed and begged Pavlichenko to shoot him dead. But Pavlichenko didn't grant his wish. He viciously pushed the master to the ground and kicked him continuously for over an hour without stopping. She said, "Shooting someone to death is actually letting them off easy. Bullets can't touch the soul, but I must torture him to make him fully understand the taste of our lives." The Cossacks' targets of hatred weren't just wealthy and powerful nobles, but also fellow poor people at the bottom. At that time, the poor often fought and betrayed each other over limited resources, which made them harbor hatred for many people. Another Cossack soldier in the book, Prishchepa, was like this. He came from a village, joined the White Army after the October Revolution, later deserted, so the White Army captured and killed his parents, and villagers looted his home. Well, when Prishchepa learned the news, he donned a black cloak, strapped a curved sword to his waist, and returned to the village. He barged into every household to search, and whenever he saw something belonging to his parents, whether valuable, like a gramophone, or cheapest, like a scarf, he would execute the owner of that house without exception. After sweeping through the whole village, he returned to his own home, tidied up, then drank for 2 whole days and nights, crying while drinking and hacking at a table with his knife. Finally, he rode away and joined the Red Army, but Lyutov looked down on him greatly. He said, "He's a worthless, persistent scoundrel of a Cossack who disregards life because they often have nothing to live for." Due to growing up in harsh environments, many Cossack soldiers suffered from syphilis. This disease tormented their bodies and twisted their minds, making them enjoy tormenting others and transferring their pain onto others. In the book, there's a syphilis sufferer named Akimfiev, a coachman tasked with escorting a deserter to the Revolutionary Tribunal for trial. This deserter kept pretending to be death to avoid the battlefield, and no one could do anything about him. That Akimfeev came up with a malicious idea to torment him. Along the way, he would periodically pull out his gun and fire a shot into the air near the deserter's ear. 3 days later, this deserter met Lyutov and said painfully, "My hearing was fine, but now Akimfeev's gunshots have nearly deafened me. I won't live long. Please write to my wife to mourn for me." Even someone suffering unbearably themselves would torment others to the same degree. On the other hand, precisely because their past was so bitter, the Cossacks could endure soldiering and gladly fight for a hopeful future. So at the stage in the novel, Babel repeatedly wrote about the Cossack cavalry's faith in the future. Once, a unit captured a small town full of Jews. Cossack soldiers seized their property in the new regime's name, then held a mass meeting announcing the arrival of a new communal era. The Cossacks believed the Jews there hadn't changed their way of life in 2,000 years. Were prying open their shut eyes, saving them from ancient habits into a new society. In reality, they knew they might not live to see that future. But in their values, the future was a clear goal, and fighting for it was honorable. Babel wrote, "The First Cavalry Army holds history's hammer, beating upon the anvil of the future." Amid these extreme battlefield experiences, the protagonist Lutov gradually changed too. He was originally an intellectual. After joining the army, he mainly did clerical work. He first truly entered the Cossack ranks when transferred to the 6th Division as a war correspondent. Upon meeting Division Commander Savitsky, the man scornfully boomed, "So it's an ink drinker wearing glasses. What a stinking intellectual." When Leotov greeted soldiers, a handsome young soldier grabbed his suitcase, threw it outside, then turned around and blasted a loud fart at him. The suitcase burst open. Lutov said nothing. He crawled on the ground, gathering scattered manuscripts and ragged clothes back into the case. Lutov realized that to be accepted by Cossacks, he must show equal cold-bloodedness, be fierce and savage. At the time, the 6th Division headquarters was stationed in a peasant cottage. Their landlady was an old woman. Lutov asked her for food. The old woman coldly said, "If you mention eating, I'd rather hang myself." Hearing this, Leotov flew into a rage. He punched the old woman in the chest. Then he saw a goose in the yard. He went over, kicked it down with one foot, then crushed its head with another kick. Cursing, he handed the dead goose to the old woman and ordered her to roast it and bring it back. When they started eating the goose meat around a big pot, the soldier said, "Looks like this Lutov fellow is getting along with us." Lutov bullied the old woman and killed her goose in public to show the Cossacks, hoping this would serve as his initiation to blend into their group. Lutov's unit often lodged in civilian homes. During wartime, men had joined the army, leaving only women, children, and the elderly. Lutov repeatedly spoke rudely to the landlady, especially when the unit suffered defeats. He took it out on the landlady. In one household, to force the landlady to hand over food, Lutov set fire to a haystack in the house. In another household, he ransacked the house, even smashing the lock on the storeroom. Finally, he placed his gun on the table, forcing the landlady to hand over a pot of stew she was cooking. But in reality, he was just bullying the weak, women, and the elderly. This wasn't enough to earn Leotov the respect of his comrades, because the bravery the Cossacks admired meant showing no mercy to any weakling, including themselves. In their eyes, pitying others was cowardice, fake compassion. In one story, a telephone operator suffered a fatal wound in a defeat with his intestines spilling out. He sat by the roadside, unable to move. When Leotov and others retreated past him, he said, "I'm done for. You have to shoot me and write a letter to my mother." Leotov didn't dare do it. And Lutov urged his horse to leave, but the telephone operator angrily crawled over, muttering, "You're running away, you scoundrel." Just then, Lutov's friend happened to come by and shot the telephone operator dead with one bullet. And he cursed at Leotov fiercely. "Get lost, you snobby dogs. Pitting my comrade is like a cat pitting a mouse. Hypocritical." In another story, a Cossack was punished by the company commander for killing prisoners without authorization and forced to hand over his beloved horse. The commander gave this horse to Lutov to use. Lutov felt uneasy, always convinced the punished soldier would hate him. He shared his worries with the company commander, who dismissed them contemptuously. Later, after a battle, this soldier distinguished himself with military valor. Lutov wanted to seize this chance to reconcile with him. The commander nearby said coldly, "Lutov, I see through you. You crave a peaceful life without enemies, straining to avoid making foes. You'd better get lost." If there's any less bloody chapter in Cavalry Army, it's likely the final one, The Kiss, right? A widely acclaimed piece. It depicts a tempestuous romance. Though devoid of direct battle scenes, war's shadow heavily looms over everyone, including this love affair whose protagonists are Lutov and a female teacher. When the First Cavalry Army temporarily garrisoned a small town, Leotov stayed at this teacher's home. Teacher had lost her husband in the war and lived with her child and elderly, paralyzed father. The novel writes, they lived in boundless fear and confusion. The teacher's father detested war, refusing to interact with the rough soldiers, believing they brought only misfortune. The family held a meeting, solemnly deciding to move to Moscow after the war, find a renowned professor for the father. The teacher would continue studies. The child could attend elementary school. To them, the future was inviolable private property. But Babel wrote, war is a tempestuous preparation for seizing happiness. Happiness being our inherent need, including Lyutov and the teacher's love. Lyutov said, I've never met anyone more passionate, free-spirited, yet more timid than her. The story threads several interrupted kisses. First, Lyutov kissing her on a hill, she breaks free, hearing noise. Then her passionate kiss, cut short by army orders. Finally, after Lutov's unit marched 100 plus kilometers back to town, her home was requisitioned by the trophy committee. They finally found a spot in the storeroom, completing their long, delayed, blissful kiss. Yet before dawn, the army had to depart again. As Lyutov prepared to leave with the troops, he discovered the female teacher's father had passed away. At departure, he simply shook hands with her. Lyutov saw this woman holding her head high as always, showing dignity amid displacement. This storm-like emotion, rising and falling, was repeatedly interrupted by chaos, war, and death. Nowhere for happiness to settle. Not even a simple kiss could be completed. The teacher understood soldiers have no choice. She couldn't escape her drifting fate. Though she asked Lyutov 3 times, will you return? Can you take me away? But facing Lyutov's silence, she didn't beg or cling. The novel barely expresses emotion directly, just fragmented impressions. Like during their first kiss, the teacher shivered, then stumbled downhill, or her burning hands when welcoming Lyutov turned ice cold at farewell, and so on. Babel used simple words to capture their emotional dance amid war's disruptions. Written brilliantly and concisely, after this romance, Lyutov crossed into Poland with the troops. His life entered a new chapter that covers cavalry army's essence. Its war details were witnessed firsthand by Babel. Protagonist Lyutov's and Babel's voices intertwine inseparably, hence the military's displeasure at its portrayal of Cossack brutality, coldness, loneliness, anxiety, and fear. Especially since Commander Budiani angrily protested Babel slandered the Red Army. Babel was executed, only rehabilitated in 1954. Yet Babel's work gained global fame. Readers love Cavalry Army for its unique, masterful prose. Babel possessed magical imagination, using vivid metaphors to build atmosphere, capturing sound, scent, color, movement, and fleeting emotions. While precisely outlining cruelty, he could still employ lyrical tones. These masterstrokes make Cavalry Army an extraordinarily captivating work of art. Let's give a few examples. In the book, Babel often writes about the sun with bizarre imagination, showing unique scenes. For instance, when Commander Budiani addresses the new brigade commander walking to his horse, Babel describes the evening sun, blood red, fiery, and strange, splashed on his head like approaching death. This sentence perfectly captures the battlefield atmosphere, hinting that this newly promoted brigade commander could die at any moment. In another story, the 6th Division just captured a city, and Lyutov follows the convoy heading towards it. The road beneath their feet was built during Tsar Nicholas I's time, using countless laborers. So Lyutov thought about his feet, stepping on peasants' bones, saw an orange sun in the sky, and felt it resembled a severed head. When Leotov was transferred to the 6th Division, he was mocked by the division commander and other soldiers, leaving him depressed. He saw the circular village road ahead and thought its yellowish color looked like a pumpkin. Then he saw the sun in the sky, feeling it was dying, exhaling pink breath, showing an ominous sign. Later, the 6th Division suffered a defeat with heavy casualties. Cavalry brigades were on the plain, and the wounded regrouped, eating in trenches. At that moment, Lutov saw the sun rapidly setting westward amid crimson smoke and dust, spreading a heavy, grim, sorrowful atmosphere. Besides the sun, Babel also imagines other natural phenomena like stars and moon uniquely. The sun links to battlefield slaughter, while stars evoke home and peaceful daily life. For example, in a village on a cold night, Lyutov and soldiers squeezed into a dilapidated hayshed to warm each other. He saw holes all over the shed roof and felt stars were freely sneaking in. When writing about the train journey at night, many soldiers started missing their hometowns. So Lyutov felt the stars in the sky were like oil lamps at home, stirring homesickness. As the regiment commander lay dying, the coachman planned to seize his wife. Excited, he went outside, stretched his hands to the sky, felt the fresh night wind singing, and stars drifted in the pitch-black night like engagement rings, falling down. Babel's scene descriptions are both fervently vivid and seemingly impassive, yet deeply ironic. For instance, when Lyutov trampled the landlady's goose amid soldiers' mockery and ordered her to cook it, the Cossack soldiers stopped laughing at him. The book writes that these soldiers ate dinner as politely as peasants, showing mutual respect. Yet behind this decorum lies cruelty and its endorsement, sending chills down the spine. In another story, the cavalry army battled Polish enemies. Soldiers, bloodthirsty and hungry, targeted a tree's beehive. They burned the hive with sulfur, then blasted it apart with gunpowder. Dying bees struggled midair as they seized honey. Lyutov wrote hyperbolically, "We've defiled the bees." In this region, bees nearly vanished. Two Ivans contains one of the most unforgettable scenes. After a failed battle, Lyutov got separated from the retreating troops. He sheltered alone in an artillery-destroyed farmhouse, others burning nearby. Burning fiercely. At night, carrying his saddle alone, he walked along field ridges and stopped to urinate. After finishing, he realized he'd urinated on a Polish corpse, urine bouncing off the skull onto his hand. Squatting, Lutov saw a private notebook and a proclamation leaflet by Polish Marshal Pilsudski beside the body. Seeing this, Lutov wiped the urine off the corpse's head with the leaflet, then walked on. This gesture appeared to grant dignity to the dead, but against a corpse-strewn, blood-soaked battlefield, such solemnity felt absurd and terrifying. Beyond irony, Babel's book contains exquisitely beautiful lyricism. He once ended a story, "A homeless moon drifted through town. I walked with it. He saw ruins covered in damp mold and imagined them as a theater." Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet began. Romeo emerged from clouds, singing of love, while a listless stagehand stood backstage, fingers on the moon switch. Babel's nights were often enchantingly portrayed. He wrote, "Night wraps me in its vast sheet, in the refreshing dampness. Night presses its maternal palm against my fevered forehead." Soviet literary critic Shklovsky said Babel describes syphilis and stars with equal tone, seeing beauty and brutality, tragedy and comedy, hope and despair simultaneously, capturing all contradictions without omission. Babel's Cossacks are savage, a trait both innate and warped by war. Yet through years of grueling marches, they held primal longings for distant happiness, peace, and love. Babel was a natural writer, whether living with Cossacks, confronting bullets and ruins, or witnessing war trauma. Through his observation, it transformed into uniquely personal prose. The 36 stories in Cavalry Army reframe our view of war and humanity, defining true blood-stained romance. Blood is reality, romance is art. Only by seeing reality can art engrave war's truth in our souls, letting it take root. That concludes our interpretation of Babel's short story collection, Cavalry Army. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.